Hey everybody, welcome back. We're up here north at Kingman, Arizona. We're on the Cerbat Crest Trail. This trail's about 27 miles, a little over 27 miles long. It's a loop. You get on the highway, come right back out at the highway. There's some pretty cool artifacts back up in here. Some old mill sites, old gold, silver mines, copper mines all spread out through here. So we'll take a little trip up here, take a look around, and show you what we find.
We'll head up that way. I don't know if you can see the road up there with this camera or not. And then we'll traverse all the way back over here and we'll end up there where you see that piece of equipment. And we just came from down that direction. Pretty good looking view out there. How'd you like to have that as your place of residence? We're out here tending to the mining activities. Looks like there was a door and some steps right in through here. Little one room rock cabin. And then this was probably a pantry off the side of it. Heading on up the hill now from the miner's cabin or the rancher's cabin, whatever that used to be down there in the watering hole. And gonna check out some trails up here. And we made our way to the top of the hill here. It's getting pretty windy, so we'll do a little voiceover here for a bit. That saddle up there is where we're headed. We had planned on going up this road here, but it was in pretty rough shape and weren't sure about any turnarounds, so we're going to save it for another trip. Meanwhile, we'll head on up the hill here towards the saddle and the rest of that equipment. See what we find along the way. So we saw some ruins down here. There's an old outhouse. Now, if you see the stacked rock over there, that's a foundation for a building. I find it pretty neat that this rock that was stacked here 100 years ago is still here and still intact and pretty much the way they left it. The exception of the wooden building that sat on top of it. This rock's probably exactly where they left it. Here you get a pretty good look at all the lumber and stuff that's been blown over. And our prospector friend pointed out this piece of folded rock here. You can see all the layers have been folded over and over and then cemented together. I know there's some geological term for it, but for you geologists out there, here you go. There's a pretty good view of where the old building's set. Up here, this old ore chute, and it looks like they made this by cobbling together and repurposing a bunch of other equipment. This is what they ended up with. And then we'll head down the hill from this, and here's these columns. If you look up to the right there, you can see that ore bin. And probably what happened is there's a conveyor belt that fed down to the mill that was probably mounted on top of these columns. And we'll head on out and take the next leg of this journey up over the top. Yeah, we leave there and we head on up to the top of the mountain. And this road's a lot steeper than it looks in the video. You can see we're losing traction coming up this section here. Pretty fun trail all in all. It's mid-March and we're at about 5,000 feet here. And you can see there's still snow on the north-facing slopes. And we'll get up here to the top and have a gate to open, and we're going to take a little lunch break, and then we're going to proceed on the back side of the mountain, and we'll just show you a little bit of that road as we move on to our next destination. Come around the corner there and discover this old heating oil tank sitting here. And right here you can see some bolts in the ground where a hoist once sat. See the old foundation there. And over here is what they were hoisting out of. Not sure how deep it is. This again will be a destination for another video at some point in the future. Interesting thing here is you can see what the old timers actually were looking at before they drove this shaft. And here's the outcrop, and that's pretty substantial. You can see they went right down in that vein. You can see how it kind of meanders off into the distance there. Now back behind us is where the shaft and the oil tank are located. Followed a little road up here at the very top of the hill. You can see there's an old building here. Next to this building we found this old can here. I think this is 1800s, not sure though. But we have a shaft that's back up over the hill here a ways that might lead to this. We don't know yet. We're going to check that out on a later date. And then behind us here, you see some rail running out here. You see they brought the ore out on that rail there, and it probably extended right out over the top of this old ore chute that's falling apart. And they dropped the ore down in there, and we'll go down below here in a minute and take a look at it. And over here is what we think is the remnants of a processing plant. So if they couldn't get the trucks up or whatever, wagons, because this was obviously from back pre-1930, and then we don't know when it shut down. We haven't found that information yet. But they had that conveyor there where they could take the ore out, put it on that conveyor, drop into that hopper there, and then down. And if you look over there, right behind the Jeep, and right in there is some real fine tailings. And so they probably had a ball mill or a cone crusher or something that made very, very fine material, and they maybe did a little processing down up here also. You can see the rail here came out of that adit where Scott's standing. There would have been a splitter here, so they could go this way or they'd turn and come out this way. And then that rail would have run along here. So believe it or not, the wind gets worse. The rail would have run along this trail here and out there to where you see that remnants of that trestle out there. And I think they just dumped it off into the wash up there. Here we see a diffuser that they used for diverting water from one side of the processing unit to the other. There was 2 of these. There's another one just like this, just a little bit up the hill from here. So I'm going to take you back up the road here. Now if we go up to the top of this hill, that takes you up to that shaft we were looking at earlier. And when we drove down this road, we expected to see a bunch of buildings laid over like the ones we looked at earlier today. And we were in for a surprise. We came around this corner and this is what we saw. Pretty cool. I love finding stuff like this just out in the middle of nowhere. When we get down here and start looking around, it's pretty obvious that there's several different eras of mining represented here. There were some square nails up towards the top, so that's probably the earliest stuff, and this has all been rebuilt over time. And then here's a conveyor belt, which would have been even later on. And then over to the left here is where they had that little mill site set up. Not real sure. We couldn't really figure out what they had set up there, but it was they were definitely milling and processing there. And here's a little better look at the newer, what we call the newer part of their processing unit here. Looks like they probably had a ball mill sitting down here. There's pretty heavy timbers, and we know they ran water down here, and you can see some of the conduit that's stretched out there right in front of us. And up on the hill we found some armored cable. So they had a pretty good power supply up here. And after closer inspection, I think we decided this was probably a stamp mill. And as we were fixing to leave, we looked across the road here and found this slurry outlet. So the water and slurry would come down off the stamp mill there and onto something down here. We don't know what was down here. So that'll do it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. I'll be out in a week or 2. Like, share, subscribe, and enjoy this little view. Catch you next time.